The massive alien fleet hung motionless in the dark void of the Kuiper Belt, their sleek silver ships reflecting the dim sunlight like scattered diamonds against the black canvas of space. Captain Firstlight stood at the command center of the flagship, his four-fingered hands gripping the edge of the control panel as he stared at the emergency readings flashing across the screens. "Status report," he demanded, his voice steady despite the growing fear in his chest. "All 300 ships are affected, Captain," his chief engineer replied, frantically moving between different holographic displays. "The quantum drive cores are completely dead. We can't even get a basic power reading from them." The captain closed his inner eyelids in frustration. 2 million refugees slept in stasis pods throughout the fleet, trusting their lives to these ships and their crews. They had fled their dying solar system, hoping to find a new home in this unexplored part of the galaxy. Now, they were stranded in the cold outskirts of an unknown system. How did this happen? First Light asked, though he already knew the answer. The experimental jump drive was supposed to be their salvation, a way to cross vast distances faster than ever before. Instead, it had become their doom. "The quantum field disruption was unlike anything we've ever seen," the science officer explained. "It's as if the very laws of physics rejected our presence here. Our advanced systems simply stopped working." First Light moved to the main viewport, watching the endless field of icy debris that surrounded them. The Kuiper Belt, as the local species called it, was a dangerous place for stranded ships. One wrong move, one collision with the wrong piece of space rock, and they could lose everything. "What about auxiliary power?" he asked. "The backup systems are working, but they're basic. Life support, artificial gravity, and emergency lighting only. We have maybe 3 months before we start losing ships." The captain's antennae twitched as he processed this information. 3 months to save 2 million lives. Their own people were too far away to help, and no other advanced civilizations were within range. "Sir," called out the communications officer, her voice carrying an unusual note of surprise. "I'm detecting signals from the inner system. Artificial signals." The bridge crew turned their attention to the holographic display showing the local solar system. 9 planets orbited a yellow star, with the third planet showing clear signs of technological development. "What kind of civilization are we dealing with?" First Light asked. The science officer pulled up the scanning data. "Primitive by our standards. They're still using chemical rockets and radio waves for space travel and communication. They haven't even established permanent bases beyond their moon." First Light's antennae curled in thought. "Show me their space exploration capabilities." The display filled with images. Crude rockets pushing against gravity with fire and smoke, a small space station circling their planet, primitive satellites scattered around their world, and a few basic probes sent to nearby planets. The council members who had joined the bridge discussion were not impressed. "We can't possibly ask them for help," one argued. "They're barely space capable. It would be like asking cave dwellers to fix a quantum computer." But First Light noticed something the others missed. These beings, these humans, as they called themselves, had achieved spaceflight through sheer determination. Their technology was simple, yes, but it worked. It was reliable. Most importantly, it didn't depend on the complex quantum systems that had failed the alien fleet. "We don't have a choice," First Light declared, silencing the council's protests. "Our advanced technology is useless right now. These humans, with their primitive methods, might be our only hope." "But Captain," his second-in-command protested, "our regulations strictly forbid contact with developing species." First Light turned to face his crew, his expression firm. "We have 2 million lives in our care. Sometimes survival requires us to break our own rules." He turned to the communications officer. "Prepare a transmission. Keep it simple. Let's see if these humans can surprise us." As the message was prepared, First Light watched the blue-green planet on the display. These humans had never faced a challenge like this before. Their response would either doom his people or prove that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. The fate of 2 million refugees now rested in the hands of a species that still thought rockets needed fire to fly. Captain Tom Reed floated in the observation module of the International Space Station, sipping his morning coffee from a sealed pouch when the first message arrived. At first he thought it was a system error. The strange patterns appearing on his communication screen didn't match any known format used by Earth's space agencies. "Houston, are you seeing this?" he asked, his coffee forgotten in the excitement. There was a long pause before Mission Control responded. "We're seeing it, Captain. Stand by." Within hours, every major space agency on Earth was buzzing with activity. The message was being received by stations worldwide, and its artificial nature was undeniable. What started as patterns soon resolved into simple mathematical sequences, the universal language of space. "They're counting," said Dr. Lisa Park, the station's communication specialist. She pushed her glasses up her nose as she studied the sequences. Prime numbers, then basic arithmetic. They're establishing a foundation for communication. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Teams of linguists and mathematicians worked together, building a basic framework for communication. The aliens, whoever they were patient and methodical in their approach. Down on Earth, governments scrambled to form a unified response team. The United Nations convened an emergency session, and for once, countries set aside their differences in the face of this unprecedented situation. "We're ready to attempt two-way communication," Dr. Park announced, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, using their own mathematical pattern as a base. Captain Reed nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Send it." The response came faster than anyone expected. The aliens had apparently been waiting, ready to move beyond basic math to more complex communication. Through a careful exchange of symbols and simple diagrams, the truth of their situation began to emerge. "They're stranded," Reed explained to the hastily assembled Earth Council via video link. 300 ships carrying millions of refugees stuck in the Kuiper Belt with failing systems. "How advanced are they?" asked the NASA director. "Very," Reed replied. "But that's part of the problem. Their technology is so advanced it stopped working. Something about quantum field disruptions. They're asking for our help." A murmur of disbelief spread through the council. "Our help? We're still using chemical rockets while they have quantum drives." "That's exactly why they need us," Dr. Park interjected. "Their advanced systems are down, but our primitive technology might still work." As if to emphasize this point, a new transmission arrived from the alien fleet. This one contained detailed images of their ships, along with what appeared to be technical specifications, translated into simple terms humans could understand. The aliens' message was clear. They had the knowledge but couldn't use it. They needed humanity's practical experience with basic space travel and mechanics. "They're desperate," Reed observed, studying the images. "Their backup systems will only last 3 months. After that." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood what failure would mean. The loss of 2 million lives. The UN Security Council connected to the video feed. "Captain Reed, Dr. Park, you've had the most direct contact with them. What's your assessment? Can we trust them?" Reed looked at the latest transmission, which showed the aliens' life support status. The numbers were dropping slowly but steadily. "They're not trying to trick us," he said firmly. "They're genuinely asking for help, even though it must be embarrassing for them to reach out to a lesser civilization. And that's exactly why we should help them," Dr. Park added. "They're setting aside their pride to save their people. We should do no less in offering our assistance." The council members looked at each other, a silent agreement passing between them. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for generations, but no one had imagined it would happen like this, with a vastly superior civilization asking for their help. "Tell them we accept," the council chairman said, "and let's show them what humanity can do with our primitive technology." As Reed prepared to send the response, he couldn't help but smile. Humanity's first major test as a spacefaring species had arrived, and it would be their very simplicity that might save the day. The main conference room at NASA's Johnson Space Center was packed with the brightest minds Earth had to offer. Engineers from space agencies worldwide sat shoulder to shoulder, studying holographic projections of the alien fleet's technical data. Dr. Maria Torres stood at the front of the room, her eyes fixed on the complex diagrams floating in the air. As head of deep space engineering at NASA, she had spent years designing systems for extreme environments. But this was different. This was the challenge of a lifetime. "Their quantum drives are amazing," she said, manipulating a hologram with practiced gestures. "But they're useless now. We need to think simpler." "Simpler?" asked a Russian engineer. "How can we help ships that advance with our basic technology?" Maria smiled. "That's exactly our advantage. Look here." She zoomed in on the alien ship's outer hull. Their attachment points are simple mechanical connections. No quantum fields, no exotic materials, just basic physics. The room grew quiet as understanding dawned. The aliens' advanced technology had failed, but their ships still followed the same laws of physics that governed everything in space. "We have 50 deep space mining vessels," said Bill Thompson, head of the International Mining Corporation. "They're not pretty, but they're strong. Each one can pull several times its own weight." Maria nodded excitedly. "And they use simple chemical thrusters. No quantum mechanics to fail." She turned to face the room. "We can modify them. Add reinforced towing cables, extra fuel tanks, and enhanced navigation systems." The engineers broke into smaller groups, each tackling a different aspect of the rescue mission. Russian engineers worked on strengthening the towing mechanisms. Chinese experts calculated fuel requirements. European teams designed new navigation protocols. Hours turned into days as they worked. The aliens sent more technical data, surprised but increasingly hopeful as they saw humans making progress. "The interesting thing," Maria explained to the Mission Oversight Committee, "is how specialized their technology became. They got so focused on advancement that they forgot the basics. But that's where we excel." She pulled up a new diagram showing a modified mining ship. "We're adding backup systems to every critical component. If one thing fails, we have 3 more ways to keep going. It's not elegant, but it works." The committee members leaned forward, studying the design. It wasn't beautiful. Thick cables, extra fuel tanks, and reinforced struts made it look more like a space-going tugboat than a rescue vessel. But that was exactly the point. "What about their weight?" asked one committee member. "Those ships must be massive." "They are," Maria agreed. "But we're not trying to move them all at once. We'll work in teams, using gravitational assists from nearby objects. It's slower than quantum drives, but it's reliable." As she explained the plan, more engineers arrived with test results. The modified cable systems were working perfectly. The enhanced fuel tanks passed all safety checks. The navigation computers were successfully calculating complex orbital maneuvers. "How sure are you this will work?" the committee chairman asked. Maria stood straight, her confidence evident in her stance. Commander James Wilson stood on the launch platform, watching as the last of the 50 modified mining ships was loaded with extra fuel. The vessels looked nothing like their original selves anymore. Each one bristled with additional tanks, reinforced towing cables, and backup thrusters. "Final checks complete, Commander," his radio crackled. "All ships report ready for launch." He took a deep breath of the early morning air. This would be humanity's first deep space rescue mission, and they were about to save beings whose technology they barely understood. "All crews, board your ships," he ordered. "Let's show our alien friends what humans can do." The launch sequence took 6 hours. 10 ships at a time, the fleet lifted off from 5 different space centers around the world. They looked clumsy, more like flying construction equipment than spaceships. But every odd attachment and extra tank had a purpose. From the command deck of the lead ship Hope, Wilson watched Earth shrink behind them. "Status report," he called out. "All ships maintaining formation," replied his second-in-command, Robert Miller. "Fuel consumption exactly as calculated. Those extra tanks were a good idea." The aliens had been watching the launches with their long-range sensors. Their message arrived quickly. "Your vessels appear unstable. Are you certain they can reach us?" Wilson couldn't help but smile as he sent back the response. "They're not pretty, but they're tough. Trust us." The first challenge came 3 days into the journey. A cluster of micrometeors appeared in their path. Modern alien ships would have quantum shields to deflect such threats. The human fleet had to do it the old way. "Evasive maneuvers," Wilson ordered. "Formation Delta 3. The fleet split apart with surprising grace, the bulky ships moving in patterns practiced countless times in simulators. Not a single meteor struck them. "Well done," Wilson said to his crews. "But stay sharp. The Kuiper Belt will be much worse." As they traveled farther from Earth, the alien fleet became visible on their basic sensors. 300 massive ships, each one darker than space itself, waiting silently in the void. "They're beautiful," Miller whispered, staring at the main screen. The alien commander, First Light, sent another message. "Your approach vector seems inefficient. Our calculations suggest a more direct route would save time." Wilson checked his old-fashioned star charts before responding. "With respect, Commander, we're following the gravitational fields. Uses less fuel. Slower, but safer." There was a long pause before the aliens replied. "We had not considered that approach. Most interesting." Day by day, the human fleet pushed deeper into space. They passed Mars, then Jupiter, then Saturn. Each planet's gravity gave them a gentle push, helping them save precious fuel. The ship's crews worked in shifts, constantly checking equipment and making minor repairs. Unlike the aliens' automated systems, these ships needed constant human attention. But that was their strength. Any problem could be fixed with tools and human ingenuity. "Commander," called out the sensor operator, "we're picking up some strange readings ahead." Wilson moved to the sensor station. The space ahead looked empty to the naked eye, but their instruments showed swirling patterns of energy. "It's what killed their quantum drives," he realized. "Alert all ships. Switch to backup navigation systems. We're doing this by hand from here on." The alien ships came fully into view as the human fleet approached the edge of the disruption field. They were enormous, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built in space. First Light sent an urgent message. "The disruption field is strengthening. Your ship's systems may fail like ours." Wilson grinned as he sent back their reply. "Our ships don't use quantum technology, Commander. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways." As the human fleet entered the disruption field, their simple but sturdy systems kept working perfectly. They were about to prove that humanity's primitive technology was exactly what was needed to save the day. "All ships, prepare towing cables," Wilson ordered. "Let's show them what these old mining ships can really do." The warning came without notice. "Massive solar storm approaching," announced the sensor operator aboard the Hope. "Radiation levels rising fast." Commander Wilson rushed to the main console, his face lit by the red warning lights. The storm was unlike anything they had trained for, a massive wave of charged particles racing toward both human and alien fleets. "All ships, engage emergency protocols," he ordered. "Power down non-essential systems. Redirect power to shields." The alien commander First Light's message arrived seconds later. "Our remaining systems are failing. The storm will destroy our life support. We cannot protect our sleeping people." Wilson looked at his own readings. The human fleet's simple radiation shields might survive, but they weren't designed to protect ships as large as the alien vessels. They needed a solution. Fast. "How long until the storm hits?" Wilson asked. 20 minutes, replied his science officer. "Maybe less." Wilson grabbed the ship-wide communication system. "This is Commander Wilson to all ships. I need ideas. Our shields won't cover their ships completely. What else do we have?" The responses came quickly. Every crew member, from engineers to maintenance workers, offered suggestions. Then a voice cut through the chatter. The mining equipment called out Susan Jones, a veteran mining ship pilot. "Our ships still have their original mineral processing shields. They're designed to block radiation during asteroid mining." Wilson's eyes widened. "Would they work against a solar storm?" "They're not fancy," Susan replied. "Just thick plates of specially treated metal. But they're tough. We could position our ships to create a barrier." "Like an umbrella," Wilson muttered. Then louder. "All ships, new formation. Spread out in a dome pattern above the alien fleet. Deploy mining shields at maximum extension." The human fleet moved with practiced precision. 50 ships arranged themselves in a protective arc, their sturdy mining shields extending like giant metal umbrellas. It wasn't elegant, but it might work. "Alien fleet, reduce power to all systems except life support," Wilson transmitted. "We'll handle the radiation protection." First Light's response showed rare emotion. "But your ships will take the full force of the storm." "Our ships are built tough," Wilson replied. "Trust us." The storm hit like a hammer. Radiation alarms screamed across every human vessel. The mining shields glowed red-hot as they absorbed the deadly energy. Inside the ships, crews worked frantically to maintain power to the shields. "Shield temperature critical," warned Miller. "We're losing cooling systems." Wilson wiped sweat from his forehead. The storm was worse than they'd expected, but they couldn't move. Millions of sleeping aliens depended on their protection. "Reroute power from life support if you have to," Wilson ordered. "Keep those shields up." Throughout the fleet, human crews worked with desperate energy. When automatic systems failed, they switched to manual controls. When standard cooling couldn't keep up, they vented oxygen from non-essential areas to create additional cooling. Each ship became a testament to human resourcefulness. Crews used every trick, every backup plan, and even invented new solutions on the spot. Hours passed. The storm raged, but the human fleet held. Finally, the radiation levels began to drop. The worst had passed. Cheers erupted across the human ships as damage reports came in. "Status report," Wilson called out, his voice hoarse. 12 ships with major damage. "No casualties," Miller replied. "The aliens, they're safe. Our shields held." First Light's message arrived moments later. "We are humbled. Your simple technology and brave crews saved our entire species. How can we repay such a debt?" Wilson looked around his bridge at his exhausted but proud crew. "No debt, Commander. This is what humans do. We solve problems, we adapt, and we never give up." As repair crews began their work, Wilson allowed himself a small smile. The aliens had finally learned what humanity had known all along. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the strongest, and the most primitive technology could be the most reliable. The real test of their rescue mission was still to come, but they had passed this crisis through sheer human determination and ingenuity. After surviving the solar storm, the human fleet began their most challenging task, moving the massive alien ships to safety. Commander Wilson stood at his control station, watching as the first towing cables shot out from the mining vessels toward the nearest alien ship. "Magnetic locks engage," reported Susan Jones from her ship. "Cable tension is good. These old mining clamps are holding better than we hoped." The rescue plan was simple in theory but complex in execution. 5 human ships would work together to move each alien vessel, using their combined power to guide the massive craft through space. "Remember your training," Wilson transmitted to all ships. "Slow and steady. These aren't asteroids we're moving. They're holding millions of lives." First Light watched from his command center as the human ships attached themselves to his fleet. Their method seemed impossibly basic: actual physical cables and clamps, powered by chemical rockets. Yet after the solar storm, no alien crew member doubted the humans' capabilities. Beginning first pull sequence, Wilson announced. All ships in Group 1, power up at 10%. The mining ship's engines flared to life. Thick cables went tight as the smaller human vessels began to pull their massive charge. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, the alien ship began to move. "It's working," Miller exclaimed. "First ship is responding to guidance." The aliens watched in amazement as their advanced vessel, dead in space just hours ago, slowly began its journey to safety. The humans made it look almost easy, though every crew member was working intensely at their stations. "Group 2, begin your approach," Wilson ordered. "Group 3, stand by for your target." Ship by ship, the rescue operation continued. The human crews worked in perfect coordination, their years of experience in space mining proving invaluable. When a cable showed signs of strain, they adjusted the load. When an engine struggled, another ship compensated. "Sir," called out the engineering officer, "some ships are running low on fuel after the storm." Wilson had prepared for this. Implement fuel-sharing protocols. Ships with excess capacity, prepare for transfer operations. The aliens watched in fascination as the human ships performed mid-space refueling, passing fuel lines between vessels without even pausing their towing operations. It was dangerous work, but the crews handled it with practiced ease. "Your species continues to surprise us," First Light transmitted. "We would never have thought to attempt such basic yet effective solutions." Wilson smiled as he replied, "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Commander. Your ships may be more advanced, but right now they just need a good pull in the right direction." Hour after hour, the rescue continued. The human fleet worked in shifts, crew members catching short rest periods, while their ships maintained their steady work. Some sang old sea shanties over the radio, songs from Earth's ancient sailing days about hauling heavy loads and working together. Group 7 reporting success, came another call. "Their ship is responding perfectly to guidance." Wilson checked the status board. Already, 50 alien ships had been moved to safety, their crews working to restart their systems once away from the disruption field. It was slow work, but it was working. A cheer went up across the fleet as the 100th alien ship was successfully moved. They were 1/3 of the way through their mission, and every human crew member felt the pride of their achievement. "Look at that," Miller said quietly, pointing to their main viewer. The sight was impressive. A stream of alien ships moving slowly but surely through space, each one guided by tiny human vessels. It looked like a grand space ballet, performed with cables and rockets instead of quantum drives. "We're witnessing history," Wilson replied. "The day humanity proved that sometimes the simplest solution is the right one." First Light's final transmission of the day summed it up perfectly. "We came here as refugees, became stranded as victims, but thanks to humanity's ingenuity, we will leave as friends. Your primitive technology and resourceful crews have taught us a valuable lesson about true innovation." 1 month after the rescue operation began, the last alien ship moved safely out of the disruption field. Commander Wilson stood on the bridge of the Hope, watching as the massive vessel's systems came back online, its lights flickering to life like stars appearing in the evening sky. "Final ship secured," Miller reported, his voice showing both exhaustion and pride. "All 300 vessels rescued. Mission complete." A wave of cheers and applause swept through the human fleet. After weeks of continuous work, they had done what many thought impossible, saved an advanced alien civilization, using nothing but modified mining ships and determination. First Light's image appeared on the main screen. His antenna moving in what the humans had learned was a gesture of deep respect. "Commander Wilson, crews of Earth, you have accomplished something extraordinary. Our council has reached a unanimous decision." Wilson straightened in his chair. "We're listening, Commander. For generations, our civilization has judged others by their technological advancement. We thought ourselves superior because of our quantum drives and automated systems. You have shown us the error of our ways. The alien commander's image was now being broadcast to every human ship. We formally invite Earth to join the Galactic Alliance, not as a developing world, but as a full partner. Your people have demonstrated that true advancement lies not in technology alone, but in the spirit of innovation and the strength of working together. The news reached Earth within hours. Celebrations broke out across the planet. Humanity had not only succeeded in their greatest rescue mission, but had also earned their place among the stars. At the United Nations, the Alien Council presented their gift, a massive data archive of scientific knowledge. But there was a catch that made everyone smile. We ask that you help us rebuild our emergency protocols, the council leader announced. Your backup systems, your manual controls, your ability to work without complex technology. These are skills our people have forgotten. We need to relearn them. In the months that followed, the partnership grew. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists, combining the best of both worlds. The aliens learned to add manual backups to their quantum systems, while humans gained understanding of advanced technology. The mining ships that had saved the day became legend. Instead of being retired, they were preserved as museums, symbols of the day humanity's primitive technology had saved millions of lives. 1 year later, Commander Wilson stood in Times Square, watching as First Light addressed the crowds. The alien ship hovered above the city, its quantum drives now working perfectly, but with new backup systems designed by human engineers. The greatest lesson we learned, First Light was saying, was that advancement doesn't always mean making things more complex. Sometimes, the simple solutions are the most powerful. Wilson felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Susan Jones, the mining pilot whose idea had saved them during the solar storm. "Ever think we'd end up here?" she asked with a grin. "Teaching quantum-age aliens how to use manual controls." "The universe is full of surprises," Wilson replied, watching as human and alien children played together in the street. "But I think we've all learned something important. Every civilization has something to teach and something to learn." Above them, a new ship took flight, a hybrid vessel combining human ingenuity with alien technology. It had both quantum drives and chemical thrusters, automated systems, and manual controls. Like the partnership between the two species, it represented the best of both worlds. In deep space, the disruption field that had started it all still swirled in the Kuiper Belt. But it was no longer seen as a disaster. Instead, it had become a monument of sorts, a reminder that sometimes the universe forces you to step backwards in order to move forward. The story of how humans saved an alien fleet with mining ships and simple physics became required reading in both human and alien schools. It taught a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. True innovation isn't about having the most advanced technology. It's about having the wisdom to know when to use it, and the courage to try something simpler when needed.